Jim Miller, you've got another very cool themed show coming up for the JiMiller Band. Tell us about it.
Anyway, yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, we're doing the Beatles, and the Dead did 26 Beatles songs. Although we're not doing all those, we're doing about, I'd say about 15 or 16. Well, and with the acoustic set, probably close to 20, 21. So,
Aren't you
and
doing?
I'm excited beyond belief to do this. Always have done the Beatles. Roberus did the band before. When Roberus was what I did before JiMiller Band. We've always done the Beatles.
Absolutely.
No matter what. I I think we've done "Here Comes the Sun" over the years, and we've probably always done "Dear Prudence" and "Do It in the Road," which is pretty much just a blues song that Paul threw together on the White Album.
Me and My Monkey.
We haven't done that since a Roberus long ago. So the Dead were really influenced by the Beatles, and it's funny because when they started doing this show is mostly the psychedelic Beatles. So what we've done is we've approached these songs in our own way, like the Dead did, but we structured them like the Beatles. So we did the Beatles versions in the keys, and we've done it like the Dead, sort of, but the Dead didn't stretch those songs out. Like they didn't do a Dark Star off of, It's All Too Much. But we sort of did.
Or a 20-minute version of Tomorrow Never Knows.
Right, well, we're not going to do something like that. But what we're going to do is stretch these songs out a little bit and song into song, sort of morph these things into each other. And we're sort of leaving it open-ended to see, how it goes. But we have about a 4 or 5 song jam in the second set. And first set will be some individual songs that the Dead covered. And over their span, they've covered a lot of songs. And it's very interesting because some of the songs that the Beatles did, the Dead also covered, which were old rockers, like Not Fade Away. I had no idea.
Chuck Berry songs.
Like Johnny Be Good, Around and Round. The Beatles covered some of the old rockers that the Dead were influenced by too. So we're going to do those also.
And really, you'd have to give the Beatles credit for
everything.
Well,
everything.
For Jerry.
Every fucking thing. Excuse me, everything. Is that loud? I said the word something.
Jerry was a folkie until Ed Sullivan.
Well, listen, they were all folkies until the Beatles.
Right.
They all, like the Byrds, they went to the movie.
Hard Day's Night.
Hard Day's Night. They saw that 12-string that George was playing, and that's exactly why the Byrds started. Yep. And they were all those bands. It's everybody. You name the band, they were all influenced by the Beatles. In fact, the Beatles are still hugely influencing everybody. If it wasn't for the Beatles, there would be no modern rock and roll, okay, or modern music, if you want to call it. And they're still influencing people. Although Fiona Apple's not, she's not recent, but you know what I mean? She's doing, Across the Universe and, that sort of stuff. This is a Kiss. This is a Kiss. It's not a Kiss. Were they influenced? I don't know. This is a gift by Beth. I thought this was the most incredible thing.
And that brought the Beatles to everybody once again.
Once again, yeah. And the new song, Now and Then, which, by the way, I'm doing with 2 of my students, 2 brothers that I play with. Shameless plug for Funky Lamp, which my good friend... and student, but now good friend, Will Barrick plays in. They're a great band from Pittsburgh. We're doing partial Beatles set, but we're not doing it this time around with us. But we'll be doing that. They've played with me over the years, and mostly Beatles sets. So those guys are now in their 20s, but when they were 8 years old. And I was teaching them, they were into the Beatles. And, Joe Barrick especially was, and he's like a phenom. He could just hear a Beatles song go, whoop, or any song, actually. All right, well, I digress. But, so this is great. Peter Jackson did this and put this together. And thank God he did, because, when I first saw this movie, which was called Let It Be,
it was sad.
Depressing.
Yeah.
And the whole grainy, terrible footage of the thing was depressing, and they were just doing it was, and he just took, for some reason, the guy, I can't remember his name. He was in the movie, or this movie, in fact, Get Back, but he took the most negative parts of that and put it on. We were all like, and at that time we just got word they broke up. So we saw it in April of '70, and Paul said, I'm leaving the band. But they had been breaking up for a while.
Right. And
this was actually sort of like on the edge of it. But it wasn't quite there yet.
It didn't focus in on the negative as much.
Well, this was totally, there were some things that were negative that happened. Like George left the band. But it was really positive, I think, in so many respects. And he brought that out. And the footage was never used that was so positive. And there was tons of it.
Right.
And it was really funny, too. Hilarious. Those guys were so funny. Oh, my God. Well, let's talk about my influence, right? So I wouldn't even be here playing guitar and doing what I do for this long if it wasn't for those guys. And thank God for my mom, because she said to me, come upstairs. This is 1964, February, right? She goes, come up here. And I'm downstairs. She goes, you got to see this. So I sat down, and there was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I lost my mind. From that moment on, I wanted to play guitar, and I did. My sister, it's a funny story. My sisters had these plastic wigs. They were like bouffant hairdos. and so my two sisters, my three sisters went downstairs. One of them was pretty young, but they put on these I did not wear the plastic wig. I refused. And we took like these tennis rackets and played and pretended we were the Beatles the day after. I went to school, I was after school, but I went to school and everybody was talking about the Beatles, because we didn't know about them before Ed Sullivan. And from then on, it was nothing but the Beatles until they broke up in '69. So I lived and ate and dreamed about the Beatles. I learned every one of their songs when they came out. It was like a huge event when one of their albums came out. I studied the Beatles. I've been a student of the Beatles ever since. And they were my biggest influence. They really were. And the Grateful Dead and the Beatles, two trees. And, everybody goes, what's your favorite tree? And I go, well, I like them all. Look at all these trees out here, I like trees. And the Grateful Dead were one tree, obviously, that I gravitated towards and loved to death. Beautiful. They're still, I can't say I love one or the other better. I just love them, and right. The Beatles were my first love. So,
and most of us.
Absolutely. And so why were the Dead doing 26 songs? Because they loved them.
And they loved them. And they stopped writing their own material
well, not really. I don't agree with that. They were writing their own material,
but not much.
Well, they were writing their own material. They were doing.
They
had just done In the Dark. I mean, they were doing it.
Well, think about how over the last 18 years of the Dead, how many songs were issued.
Well, Ken, I will tell you that as you get older,
your faculties
No, it has nothing to do with faculties. It just has to do with how much you want to write and what you're doing. When you're younger, you tend to write like a lot more. And that's just a matter of fact. So I can tell you that for sure. Now, I'm writing a bunch of songs now, but I'm writing with other people, which I never did in the past.
Right.
And it's funny because see that bag, see those boxes and the bags over there in the corner? That's my basement because we have a huge leak in our storage room, so we had to move all that stuff out. Right there, that backpack and all the boxes below it. Well, those are filled with lyrics and poems, and I don't know why you're taking pictures of all that. That is all filled with material of stuff that I've never really either put together or I have put together, and I've never done recordings or done anything with the band or members. So I have backlogs of material that I've never even touched, or I've touched it. You probably have the tapes that I did it on, by the way. So I'm gonna, if you ever find anything that you could hear me just toying around with stuff, grab that and give it back to me, because I don't know.
Like
I can't
demo
find-
stuff.
Yeah, some of it's sort of lost, but I think that once I get back into the lyrics, I'd probably be able to remember most of it. And right now I'm writing about 5 songs with others. I'm writing one with my son Michael Miller from Vibe and Direct. I'm writing one with Jim Weinfurter, and he's coming over here to play, to get together for the acoustic set. I'm writing one with Bob Vittalon, which we haven't finished quite yet, but we have most of the structure together and some of the words. I'm writing one with Beth's son, Matthew, and let's see. I'm forgetting somebody, I think. Hey, help me. But anyway, so I'm writing with others now.
Duets album?
I don't know. We'll see I don't know. We'll see. But, and then I have a couple that I'm writing by myself. So I I took a hiatus from writing after In Transit. In Transit was I got sort of a little disappointed with In Transit. I sort of just got tired of the whole shtick of doing albums and trying to get originals. I had to ask myself, what am I doing this for? But I'm not going to go there right now. Just so the Beatles were like, obviously huge influences, and obviously huge influence on the Dead. And to hear their interpretations of their stuff, and especially their psychedelic stuff, it was pretty interesting. And to hear our interpretation of it is really going to be interesting for the folks out there. I think it's going to be a real cool thing for people to hear.
Sounds like it will be, because it's not just covering the Dead, covering the Beatles.
No,
it's Jim Miller
it's
interpreting the same songs.
Right. It's as always, it's our interpretation. And Bagel's also a massive Beatles fan and a real big Paul McCartney fan. I mean, his vocals were really influenced by Paul McCartney. Now, Brian and I, our vocals really mesh well together.
Yes,
and we spent 2 hours yesterday before practice going over vocals, and we have another vocal practice this weekend. Obviously, the vocals for the Beatles really made it, and that's a beautiful thing. But as you can see down the basement here, well, you could also see this if you want to see this. This is pretty funny. I don't hope this doesn't glare, but this is my family. This is my dad. Oh my God, what a cool dude, huh? With these Ray-Bans. But here's me with my John Lennon glasses in 1966. So 66 is when I started playing guitar.
How old were you?
12. And it's funny because this was like during the Hell's Angels. I have a little Hell's Angels, like not really. It was like a Maltese cross thing. That at that time we were riding around the neighborhood with gooseneck bikes. It's funny because Victor Schreckengoss designed those bicycles.
Wow.
And he lived like 2 doors from me when I grew up. So here's you can see the influence of the Beatles. You can see you gave me that, the Yellow Submarine, as a gift. So thank you very much. And there's George with his guitar, and there's a really good old shot with the Beatles rocking out. It's like the George Harrison and Paul McCartney and John in front,
Stu Sutcliffe.
Stu like with his back turned as usual, and Pete Best on drums. That's like from the 50s. They look like Elvis. Let him in, Beth. That's fine. He'll come in. And so you can see, there's a psychedelic. I want to get a real version. I want to get the original Avedon pictures. That came in Life magazine too.
Yeah.
So we can finish this up, but you can see all the posters down here. Show people the posters if you want, and you could do this. Other
So
stuff
where is the gig, and when is the gig?
The gig is at the Winchester, and we're doing a first set acoustic. It starts at 8:00, maybe 7:30. Something like that. And get your tickets early because they're cheaper, $5 cheaper.
What date is it?
It's this Saturday, the 2nd of, let me see for sure, because I can never take dates and I can't do them. You grab my phone, hon. It's the 2nd of, here's the famous Jim Weinfurter right here. There he is. Take a shot of Jim coming in. He's going to be doing our show too. It is this, it's the 3rd. It's the 3rd of
February.
3rd of February at the famous Winchester.
Cool.
And we're doing long sets, so come on by, okay? 3rd of February at the Winchester. Grateful Dead meets the Beatles meets JiMiller Band, I think.
Well,
Peace.
see you there.